Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I am going to be doing the mid-month wrap-up for February. We're going to go over the books that I read for the first couple weeks. Wasn't as good as I thought I was going to do. Honestly, it's been really rough this week. I didn't even know if I was going to film this, but I didn't want to do an end of the month wrap up only because I talk a lot about books and it'd be a lot to cover. But my dad did pass away earlier this week, so it's been really tough, but I still wanted to get this done and posted. I also got sick the same day he passed, so it's just been a really tough week. But I do want to get this a mid-month wrap up because I do have some good books to talk about, lots of arcs and different things going on that I want to cover. So I will try my best to do a decent job, but I'm kind of not at 100% here. But I still want to give you all the books that I read for the first half of February. So let's just go ahead and dive right into my mid-month wrap up. Okay, sorry to be a downer in the beginning of the video. I just wanted to let you guys know what was going on. I haven't not really been able to focus on books this week. I was out of work too. I went on bereavement and I was staying with my mom. And so I just have not really read that much, which is completely understandable. So I think I read 13 books for the first half of February. So not too shabby, but it's definitely not where I was headed. But you know, life happens and it's just been really tough, you guys. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be a downer here. So let's just focus on the books. The first one I want to start out with is I did finally finish my reread of the Outlander. I'm actually going to annotate this. I was supposed to do that this week, but I didn't get to it for obvious reasons. So I'm still going to annotate it because I was doing all my highlighting and everything on my Kindle. But if you're not aware, Jen from the Book Refuge is doing an Outlander read along this year. It'll probably take longer than the year because she's trying to give a good amount of time per book. I think we read it like 6 weeks for this one, which is really nice because these are very thick, very chunky books, but also this is historical fiction. It's not fully historical romance. It does have a romance in it because obviously Jamie Fraser, but it's not focused solely on the romance. So it's harder for some romance readers to read, and it does, you know, go deeper into other stuff. So I think it's great that she's giving more time to read that. I listened to this on audiobook at the same time I was reading on my Kindle. That way I could do like my annotating, get prepared for that. And again, I've read this before. I loved it. I think I read it when I first watched the first season of Outlander. I couldn't believe I didn't even know this was a series. Like I was living in the dark ages, didn't even know. But if you don't know anything about this, there is also a show, which is amazing. But this is about Claire, and she is in the just finished World War I. She was a nurse. Her and her husband, they kind of got married before that, so they've been separated for the war, haven't been around each other that much. So they actually go to Scotland, where he had family, and he is looking at his genealogy. He's looking at his, you know, ancestors and all of that. So they're kind of doing their own thing in Scotland, and she ends up going to these like stones, and it takes her back in time. I believe I'm trying to remember which year it is, 1743 in Scotland. And this is the time of like the Jacobites and all of that. And she gets taken back in time, and she kind of runs into Frank, her husband's ancestor, which was Jack Randall. And he is a psychopath, scary dude. And he's also for like the English military. And then she kind of runs from him and ends up with these Scotland, Highlanders. And she meets Jamie Fraser, and she gets kind of embroiled in this. It's not a great situation where she's going to have to do kind of a marriage of convenience with Jamie Fraser, who is also kind of on the run. And it goes from there. Now, this series is a big series. There's so much that happens in this book. I think this is like 800 and something pages. Or this one, actually, the physical copy is like 600, the one that I have. But it's very small writing. So it's a pretty big book. But I absolutely love Jamie Fraser. He's top book boyfriend material. He's one of the most dreamy men. I love it. So I still give this 5 stars. I was just loving all the lines that Jamie gives. He's just so swoon worthy. So if you want to see our thoughts on this, we just did the live show on Jen's channel. I'll try to remember to link that down below. It was a pretty long show because this is a long book and we had a lot to cover, but it was so much fun. I was like fangirling out because I got to be on Jen's channel, and she's like my favorite booktuber of all time. So thank you to Jen for having me. It was such a blast. Even though I'm sick, it was just so fun. And I hope I'll be able to get to do the second live show too. So I have to read the second book here soon too. And I think that live show is going to be on March 30th to read Dragonfly and Amber. So if you're doing that, let me know in the comments down below if you're also doing the Outlander read along. It'd be good to hear from you. And if you aren't, you can definitely still jump in. It's going to be so much fun. So anyways, let's go on to the rest of my books. Okay, so then quickly, I'm not going to go into this, but last month I did mention The Seeds of Malice, I believe it was, by Maggie Cole, that I gave 1 star to. I didn't end up reviewing it fully on Goodreads because it was an arc, and I hated that book. Well, I got the arc of the second part of that duet, and I wasn't going to read it, but I thought I would just give it a go, see if I could do it, and that was Thorns of Malice, and I read a couple chapters, and I DNF'd it, so not a good fit for me. The heroine that was used and abused and treated so badly and drugged and all these things in the previous book, that drug had side effects where now she's a sex addict. And she still likes to call herself a little whore and all those kinds of things. So I was like, yeah, I'm not putting myself through that again. So I just DNF'd it. Then after that, I was like, I need my feel-good romance. I need a comfort read. So I continued with the Ice Planet Barbarians, and I read Barbarians Rescue. This is book number 14 in the Ice Planet Barbarian series, so I'm slowly getting through them. And this is between Warwick and Summer. I actually listened to this on Audible. It is available on Audible Plus if you have a membership. So I love listening to the audiobooks. They're always really well done, and you can get through them super fast. So this one's between Warwick and Summer, and Summer's kind of like this chatterbox. She talks a lot. To fill the silence. Warwick's very silent and doesn't really communicate that well with her, and she thinks he's just irritated by her, but really he likes hearing her talk. And they are actually out with a couple other people doing something at this location. I think they were getting the fruits from that one kind of forest thing that they found. And then they happen to see kind of a spaceship landing down in a close by area, and ends up being some slave traders, and they capture some of the other people. And so they, Warwick and Summer basically are kind of it right now near that area. So they head over to try and kind of rescue these people. So it's kind of their journey to try and rescue them. I did like their dynamic. It was really cute. It didn't blow me away or anything, but I did think it was cute. And then the interesting new dynamic or story that's going to be unfolding with this spaceship, because they do end up finding more women on there that are, sleeping. So now we're going to have more women. So that's going to be interesting. So I did really enjoy this. I gave it a 4 stars. They're usually like a 4-star for me unless they like, I like love them. But it was sweet. It was like 2.5 chilies and I enjoyed it. Then I read an arc for Stay With Me by Brooke Montgomery. I was so excited to get this arc. We did this, the Here With Me for the, our last buddy read, not last, but one of our buddy reads. And Brooke Montgomery was so nice. She reached out to us on Instagram and was like, hey, if you guys want an arc, just let me know. And I just thought that was so wonderful. Thank you so much, Brooke, because I definitely wanted an arc. So Stay With Me, I was really highly anticipating because this was going to be a pregnant but not with his baby trope. And you know, if you know me, if you see my videos lately, I am loving that trope. I just love it when a man falls for a woman and her baby and that it's not his baby and he takes care of them. It's just so swoon-worthy. So this is between Trip and Magnolia. And Magnolia you met in the previous book because she was actually best friends with the heroine from that one. And she has had it for Trip forever. Like, she's had a crush on him like pretty much most of her life, like since she was in high school. And Trip just like didn't really go there with her. He was interested, definitely interested, but she was his sister's best friend. And then his other brother started to kind of crush on her. And so he felt like he couldn't really ever go there. And so she kind of just gave up and she stayed with this boyfriend, this loser boyfriend that she had, that they were kind of like that off again, on again kind of relationship. It was going nowhere and she was just kind of like settling. And so she finally ended things with him. It's been like a couple years. And she ends up, like, her and Trip end up kind of connecting and they're gonna try and date, and they start things kind of like Trip finally acknowledges he's been pining for her for years and he wants her. And so they start to kind of like secretly date because they want to make sure they have like a real thing here before like they tell everybody or tell her his sister. But unfortunately, right before they got together, like, she happened to see this girl hanging all over him at a bar one night and she was feeling really lonely. And so she had a one-night stand with her ex. And right when her and Trip are starting to get settled in and dating and they're really loving it and getting to know each other, she gets pregnant. And so she thinks, like, we can't be together. I can't, you know, inconvenience you with like, now I'm gonna be a new mom. I gotta figure out my life. You know, she has her own little business where she has like one of those like kind of like a food truck, but she does it like as a cafe where it's like her own like coffee bar. I just loved it. It was super cute. And it's just that awkward thing of like, should we be together? Maybe we shouldn't. But Trip definitely steps up to the plate, you guys. Like, Trip is book boyfriend material. He is so swoon-worthy. I have tons of quotes from him. I really, really loved this book. So I absolutely love this one. I ended up giving this one 5 stars, and then it was 3 chilies. I definitely, you know, you do get kind of frustrated with Magnolia at a point with her decision making, but it was okay. Like, still, I didn't mind it because the Trip was just so, like, he was all in and he was there for his woman and her baby. So I definitely recommend this series. I can't wait to get to the next one because it's going to be the other brother who became like her, like the one that had a crush on her. Were just kind of friends. They didn't have that chemistry. So like he ended up becoming like really good friends with her. And so that one is going to be kind of like an amnesia where like he's like really into this girl and she ended up getting injured and she hated him before, but now I don't think she remembers that. So I'm in for it, you guys. I can't wait. So definitely check out this series. Oh, this was the second book in the Sugarland Creek series. So check it out. Okay, so then I actually read another arc, and I was actually really excited to get this arc. This was Giana Darling's new release, Serpentine Valentine. And this is a sapphic romance. It's a Medusa retelling, and I thought it was just so unique. Honestly, it blew me away. It is very dark, and Giana Darling's writing just like sucked me in, and she really like explained things in such a real way, but like beautiful the way she writes. I don't know. It was just very well done. So in Medusa, you know, she was actually raped. So in this, just know you're gonna go in, and the beginning of the book, our heroine, I'm sorry, what was her name? Lex. She actually gets assaulted by her teacher. He drugs her and he sexually assaults her. And it's on page, but it's not too brutal, but mostly it's the feelings of Lex and what she's going through, and it just felt so real. And I think like even like the way she felt afterwards, just so hopeless, and the trauma that she experienced, I think a lot of women can relate to this, and anybody that like has experienced sexual assault, I think they could really connect to the way Giana Darling wrote about Lex's feelings in that moment. And I deeply connected to this, and it just moved me. It was very hard to read. It's very sad. It's dark. And after that event, the school kind of like hushes it up, and the president of the school is a woman, and she doesn't believe her. She really believes her, but she doesn't want something like that to be happening under her watch. And so she kind of sweeps it under the rug and covers it up. And so Lex is the one that's made out to be the slut and made out to be a liar and all these things at the school. She was almost kicked out of the school, but she fought it. And so she had to, like, she's come back, and she's kind of made out to be the pariah of the school, even though she was the one that was the victim. And I think this is so important because we do see this a lot in colleges of like fraternities and all these things where like women are getting raped, and it just gets hushed up, and it's just a horrible, horrible system that just continues. So anyways, I think this book tackles a lot of heavy stuff. So just be prepared to check your triggers before you read that, because it is heavy. Lex basically decides she's trying to get justice and revenge, and she decides that she wants vengeance against the president because she didn't stand up for her and fight for her, and she swept it under the rug. And she ends up kind of having this connection with Luna, who is the president's daughter. And Luna's always figured she was straight. She had a boyfriend or whatever, which she loved him, but like you could tell she'd never been like in love or passionate with like the sex or anything. And so her and Lex start to have this like immediate connection. And Luna was very just sunshine and positive, and just was very open to it, and I really appreciated that. And so hers might be like a bi awakening, or you know, that kind of thing, and maybe that bugs you, but I honestly really liked this. I think that they had such great connection and beautiful story, and Lex's journey to, you know, deal with her trauma, and instead of just being all about vengeance and revenge, about, you know, getting justice for women and all of that. It's just a moving story. And so I don't always love sapphic romances, but I think it's because I've never really connected to one before, but I loved this romance. I loved Giana's writing. It was really beautiful. I think it was so powerful the way she wrote about sexual assault. And so I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. And then I gave it 3 chilies. It was really well done. So then I read another arc, you guys, and this was Surrender by Sam Mariano. Technically, this is just kind of like re-released under different titles because it was previously Sophie's Surrender. And this is co-written. Oh, I didn't write her name down. I'm so sorry, but it's co-written with another author. So I did feel like it didn't feel full like a Sam Mariano book to me. Some things were kind of missing. It didn't have the full Sam Mariano effect. So I think that might have been an issue. If it was just Sam Mariano, I think it would have been a little different. But she re-released this because it's going to be part of the Coastal Elite series. So this is book number 4. You could technically read this as a standalone because it doesn't really tie into the other books much, except it does have a cameo by Dare and Aubrey, who are in Even If It Hurts. And this one is between Sylvan and Sophie, and Sylvan is a typical Sam Mariano, crazy, over-the-top, possessive, willing to do whatever it takes to get his woman. He is throwing a party on Halloween, and Sophie is very, like, kind of sheltered. She doesn't go out. She's socially awkward. She doesn't really want to party or anything, but she's trying to put herself out there at her mom's request. And so she actually goes to this party and catches Sylvan's eye, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your take on it. And he's dressed as like this Viking. He's got this long hair. He's like super good looking and very alpha. And he's super rich. They end up having like this like escape room whole thing set up for the party, so he wants her to go check it out with him, and she does, and so they're locked in this series of escape rooms for like the hour, and by the last room they get into, he decides he's gonna take what he wants. And this is where you kind of have you definitely have the non-con coming in. Like, he's basically kind of forcing her to get sexual with him, and she kind of maneuvers it so that maybe she could just give him a blowjob instead of him having sex with her. And he decides after this whole interaction, like, he's not done with her, and the stalking begins. He, like, sets up cameras in her dorm room. He, like, has spy pens at her mom's house so that he can hear her, and he has spy pens in her bag. And he just basically pursues her hard. She tries to, like, fight it, but, like, he'll be like, oh, he sent his driver to take her, like, out to a nice dinner, and he won't see me, I promise. And then he showed up in the car because he gave her a blindfold. Anyways, he's crazy. But I still liked him. And I enjoyed this romance. I don't think it's the best. There were a lot of issues. Some issues that I had with it. Kind of like plot holes. And just stuff that kind of fell flat. I'm not going to go into that. I gave it 4 stars. The big thing is that there is a new short story or a bonus scene at the end called Sleeping Beauty. And this is the only thing that's been added, basically. And this is a Dare and Aubrey chapter. And it's going to give you a look into Dare and Aubrey now. This story starts like at that Halloween party, and you get to see kind of the situation that Aubrey's in. It's in her POV. Her and Dare are happily together, if you call it that. I'm not a Dare and Aubrey fan. People were like up in arms about this bonus scene because of what she just has done to the characters. And I'm not going to go into it here because I don't want to give anything away, but it is changing things for the series, and it's coming into play with Aubrey's best friend, Hannah, that she's not allowed to be friends with, and all of that. So check it out. Don't check it out. Sam Mariano has gotten a lot of backlash for this bonus scene, and I don't really think it's fair. I don't want to get on that tirade here, so I won't go too much more into it. I am going to be doing I did do a vlog. I just got to edit and put it up. So I did a vlog on Surrender because one of the viewers asked me to. So thank you so much for asking me to do that, because it was definitely needed because of this bonus chapter. So I do discuss its spoiler review, and I do go into the Sleeping Beauty if you want to check out my thoughts there. I will be hopefully posting that later this week. So just stay tuned. Hopefully I'll get that up as soon as I can. Oh, but that one I gave 4 stars, and it was 4 chilies because there is a lot in here. You know, there's a non-con, there's dub-con. You know, he takes things to extremes. So definitely check it out. Okay, so the next book that I read was Wretched by Emily McIntire. I'm trying to get through this Never After series. This is book number 3. I loved the last book. I really liked Hooked, and I loved Scarred. This one I didn't like as much. It just didn't connect for me. I believe this is kind of supposed to be like a Wizard of Oz retelling, which I didn't really fully see that except for like names and stuff, but you know, whatever. I actually listened to this on Audible Plus 2. It is available there. I think the whole series is, if I'm not mistaken. But this is between Nicholas and Evelina. And he is basically like an undercover cop, I think DEA agent, I'm thinking. And her family is involved in like drug trade and all of that. But she is actually like the brains behind the operation and making this drug. And so he's trying to get involved in the family and find the person who's, you know, the supplier, the creator of this drug. And he starts to have an attraction with her. They kind of met before he goes undercover, and they have like hook up at the bar and a one night stand kind of situation. So, but now he's undercover trying to figure that things out, and him and her have like this push and pull. She hates her sister and thinks her sister killed their older sister and all this kind of stuff. So it was good. It was okay. I just didn't really connect. And the heroine is like pretty bad. So this is kind of like a bad girl, good guy kind of book. I mean, she's like kills people in here, and she's pretty ruthless and willing to do what she wants. So I just didn't fully connect to her. I'm not really always one of those chicks like that likes the badass heroine kind of thing. It's hard for me to connect to those sometimes. And I just didn't fully feel like they loved each other or their connection. It was hot. There was some really good spicy things in here. So I ended up giving this 3.5 stars and then 4 chilies because there was a lot of spice in this. But I mean, it wasn't horrible. I just didn't connect or feel it like the other books. Okay, so then I read another arc, and this one was Wildcat by Bella Matthews. This is the second book in the Playing to Win series. This is kind of like a second generation of her other like series. And that's my problem is I read the first one too, and I really like these, but I haven't read all of the like parents books, and they're heavily in this. This brings up so many different characters, and there's like a whole family tree at the beginning of it, and it's kind of hard to like connect to it because they're constantly getting taken out of the story and bringing up like this couple and that couple, and I just didn't relate to them. So that's one thing that I think is kind of like you have to like read every single book to be able to like kind of know what's going on. I mean, not know what's going on, but like to connect to all these random characters. Anyways, side note, you guys, I had to say it. So anyways, this is between Cross and Everly, and they actually meet. She is a twin, and she's always called like the evil twin or whatever, even though she's not. But she's very like commitment phobe. She doesn't do relationships, and she runs into Cross at the bar where she's hanging out by herself, and they basically hit it off. They kind of have like a one night stand like in the bar. And, you know, they exchange numbers and everything. But Cross has a lot going on. He is in the NHL. He's a pro hockey player, but he's also a single dad. The mother didn't want anything to do with having a kid. She just tried to land him. And then when that wasn't working, she just basically signed all rights to him. So he's a single dad. So they kind of text, but they both have different kind of schedules. And so and she's from a very rich family that's like, they're all in like hockey and football and all that kind of stuff. She is she did ballet, but her twin sister is actually like a prima ballerina. And then she is like a cheerleader and all of that. So they hadn't been able to hang out. So one day she helps out her mom at her studio where she teaches ballet. And because her twin sister couldn't do it, and she shows up, and it's to teach like the little kids how to play, and Cross is there with his daughter. And so he immediately like is trying to have them date. She's very into him, but she's also very leery because he's a single dad and she's a commitment phobe, you know, and you know, he's got a daughter. So, but I really loved it because she did open up and they did communicate through things. And the reason she's a commitment phobe was because she was badly hurt. And so she opened up herself to somebody, and that does get brought in kind of in the third act, what happened to her. So I felt like it was just kind of like randomly dropped in there, even though it's hinted at. So that was kind of, and the way it was handled wasn't my favorite, but if I do give trigger warnings, it's going to kind of give that away. But I ended up really liking this because I thought they were really sweet. She gets this beautiful connection with his daughter. And, you know, watching her kind of break down those walls was cute. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and it was 3 chilies. And again, it does have like the trigger warnings. And this will kind of give it away for previous sexual assault and drugging and all of that. So... okay, so then I listened to Lady Wallflower by Scarlet Scott. I only read one previous book from her, and I didn't really love it. So I wanted to give her another chance, and this one was okay. I didn't dislike it like I didn't like the first one. This one was the second book in the Notorious Ladies of London. The first book in the series was the one I was kind of like, eh. But this is between Elijah Decker and Lady Jo Danvers, and it did have a really cute setup where she had wrote this list out of all like these inappropriate or things that she wants to do, and he ends up getting that by mistake, and he is really intrigued by her because she's kind of like the awkward, like not social, she's like the wallflower, obviously. And so he basically says, you can have your your list back when you try these things with me. So he's kind of like the cad, you know, the rake, and you know, they start to have all these interactions together, and he's so into her, so obsessed, but he doesn't understand it because he's never really wanted to settle down or anything, and he was hurt in his past. And then of course they will get caught by her brother, and then he decides, well, I'll just marry her, you know. So it's another one of those. I just felt like it was like kind of slow, or like, I don't know, there just wasn't a lot of angst, there wasn't a lot of to it. So it was a decent read. I just didn't fully connect to it, and it just kind of, I don't know, I can't explain it, you guys. It was decent, but it wasn't like my type of historical romance, I feel like. So I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. It does have 3 chilies because Scarlet Scott does bring some good spice to her books. But I'm still going to give her a try because, you know, she's more independent, and I do like that her stuff is available on Audible Plus too. So, okay, and then we did our buddy read for this month, for February, and that was The Summer You Found Me by Elizabeth O'Rourke. This is the 3rd book in the summer series. I did not read the previous 2 books. And this one follows Beck and Kate. And Kate is actually the wife to the hero from the second book, I believe. And she basically, went through trauma of like losing her baby and became addicted to drugs. And she did some fucked up stuff. She like left, she went off to rehab. And so he's found his love, who is younger, and she has twins. I think she had twins. Anyways, and now Kate is back and wants her husband back. And she is basically like, she states she's the bitch, she's the mean girl, she's the whatever. And she's perfectly okay with that. And she's willing to do whatever it takes to try and get her man back, even if it's horrible things to this innocent woman that he fell in love with. So as you can tell by my voice, I did not like this book. I hated this heroine. I was going to DNF it, honestly, when I was reading it on my Kindle. So I didn't want to fully DNF it because it was a buddy read. So I ended up buying I don't know why I did it. I bought the audiobook just so I could get through it. And I wish I didn't spend my money on that. But it's a decent audiobook, good narrators, all that. But I hated this heroine. She is ruthless. She blames everybody else except for herself. She doesn't take responsibility for her actions. She does underhanded things, working with the heroine from the previous books, X, who's a horrible human being, to like try and break them up. And like the things that she does is really underhanded. I didn't feel like she had a redeeming arc. Like she had no redemption to me. She more was like, didn't want to get caught with what she was doing. She never really felt like she was sorry. I hated it. So I hated the heroine. I didn't even feel a connection between her and Beck, because literally the whole time she's going after her ex and trying to break up that relationship. And it's just disgusting. So anyways, I gave this one 2.5 stars. And then I gave it 2.5 chilies. It's probably more, but I was checked out. I didn't care. I had the speed up real fast because I hated everything that came out of this heroine's mouth. Anyways, on to better wines. So I finally read it. And I might remove this. This is actually the Fabled edition, and I love that I got this on Mercari. I read Knotted by Pam Godwin. I'm going to take this cover off because it's pretty dark, so you can see how beautiful this edition is. Like, isn't that cool? Like the foiled horse. Oh, I love it. So I read Knotted by Pam Godwin. And let me tell you, this book put me through my feels. I can always trust Pam Godwin to give me a dark subject matter, dark content, but it's going to make me emotional. It's going to put me through all my feelings. And this book was angsty. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be so angsty. This one is dark, so please check your triggers. This is between Jake and Connor. And Jake and Connor... And Connor's the girl's name. Sorry. Just didn't want to confuse you. But Jake and Connor grew up. Their families lived on the same ranch. And they kind of like own the ranch together. And so they were like childhood sweethearts. They were in love. In this beginning, they're like 16, 17. And they're finally going to lose their virginity to each other. And they're going to like, their brothers, like she has a brother and he has a brother. So both their brothers are kind of like helping them run interference so they can go out kind of on the ranch and lose their virginity out there together, because the families, they share like one big house together. So they end up going out there to lose their virginity. And Jake actually has kind of, the bondage kink in his head. So he wants to tie her up, and she completely trusts him. They love each other. And so he ties her up, but then all of a sudden 2 guys in masks show up, and they have the other brothers bound and gagged and everything. And he tries to get her free, but she's tied up. And so he gets knocked out. And of course, Connor gets brutally assaulted by these men. And it is on page, and it is very traumatic. And so this night changes everything. her dad ends up moving her into the city away from them. And so she's like, no matter how long it takes, you know, we're together. And so it takes her a couple years to try and get back to him. But when she comes back, he's not the same. And, you know, I'm just telling you the scene where she comes back to him and the reception she got. I don't want to give anything away, but it made my stomach hurt. It was so angsty. And so you have some time jumps in here of them like not being together for many years, and him, you know, and he had his reasons. But like, and her having to get through her trauma because she was bound. She doesn't like people to touch her wrists. You know, so she does have these big triggers. And so when she ends up coming back home to that ranch, he's like tries to help her through triggers in his way. And so there's some like BDSM is healing kind of thing, and which Pam Godwin does really well. And I just loved it. So much dark shit goes down in this book, but I really loved it. So I ended up giving this one a 5 stars, and I mean the trigger warnings, it's SA on page. It's brutal. You know, there's murder, abuse. Her father ends up being physically abusive to her. So there is child abuse, you know, abuse of a parent by a parent in here. So there are a lot of triggers in this. Just make sure you check those out. But look how beautiful. It says the terrain of childhood shapes the soul, and the soul never forgets. Oh, I loved this book, you guys. And this one is so cool because it is signed by Pam Godwin, who is like my queen. So anyways, finally got to that one. Okay. Then I read Aflame by Penelope Douglas. I was trying to finish that Falling Away series. The Fall Away, I think it's Fall Away series. I always say it wrong. This is book number 4, and I was shocked to learn that this is going to be between Jared and Tate again, who Jared and Tate are the couple from Bully, the first book in that series. And so I was shocked, even though the previous book did show some kind of like issues going on with them, because Jared isn't happy with like what he was doing for his future and didn't know what he wanted to do. And Tate was like, knew what she was gonna do with her life and all that kind of stuff. So what ends up happening is he ends up ending things with her because he needs to go find himself. And she's pissed and she's like, get the hell out. And so it's like 2 years later, and he is kind of tricked by his mom and them to come home because his mom is pregnant again. And Tate is there. And so she's actually in a relationship. And she's going to school, to med school and all that kind of stuff. And she has a boyfriend, and she's racing cars and doing the fun stuff. And so, but once Jared and Tate come into contact, their connection is so fire, and they are meant for each other. So I really loved it. It felt very angsty and a really good second chance romance, where there was some reasons why they didn't get it back together right away. And, you know, once they communicate, I love that couple. They've been through so much to be together. So I absolutely love this. I think it was such a good conclusion. I think that's the last book in the series. And then now it'll be like the second generation, which I wanted to get to. So I gave that one 5 stars. I listened to that one on AnyPlay. It's available there. And I gave it 2.5 chilies. Okay, so the last book that I have is an ARC, and this is The Wallflower by JL Beck. This is the first book in the Oakmount series, and this is a bully, college, non-con, CNC, dubious consent, all that. So in this, we have Drew and Maybelle, but she goes by Belle. And Belle is like very nerdy, very, you know, studious, on the right path. Her mother is very sick, and so she is, you know, struggling, trying to balance that and try to get money for her mom to get her medical bills paid for and all of that. And then you have Drew, who he's basically like the elite of the school. He's the star quarterback. He's the head of this kind of almost like a secret society. And they put on this event called The Hunt. And that is what it sounds like. It's literally these elite guys. All these women come to this and they are like willingly doing this. It's kind of like consensual non-consent where the women go off running and these guys chase them down and bang it out and catch them. And a lot of times it's just like the play acting. It's the CNC. Except for Belle, because her best friend talks her into doing it. And he actually ran into her at the library because she stood up against him because he was being mean to another like nerdy kid, and he zeroes in on her fast and is obsessed. Drew is not a good guy. He is not this likable hero. He's an anti-hero, and you'll probably be irritated by him for most of the book, but the author warned me and I expected it, and it wasn't like the one with like Maggie Cole, which was just disgusting. So I didn't mind it. And he basically wants her, and he only wants her for the hunt. And so she's going to the hunt because you can win 25 grand if you get to the end, which nobody really ever does because it's all about the CNC. So she's in her mind, that's what she's going for, not really knowing what she's getting into. And needless to say, Drew pursues her multiple times. She's falling all over the place. He's getting kind of abusive, and he basically takes what he wants. And so it is a non-consent kind of scene here in the beginning, but he's not done with her. He's obsessed with her. And he basically tells her, like, I'm obsessed with you. We can't really be together. I don't want a relationship, but like, I need to get you out of my system, or until I'm bored of you, like whatever. And so she's kind of irritated by this. He keeps pursuing her. Oh, sorry guys. I might have watery eyes here. I have a really bad cough. Okay, so he keeps pursuing her, kind of forcing her to be his, claiming her. He doesn't want anybody else to touch her. It's very touch her and die vibes. But the lines start to blur, and she starts to kind of feel things for him. And he's kind of feeling differently for her. But he does have this psycho father that he has to do whatever his father wants. And his father does not want him around this girl. And his father is very abusive, and he also has a sick mother. And so this is the one redeemable thing about Drew, was that he was doing everything to protect his mom. His dad would like threaten not to take care of his mom's medical like stuff if, you know, he doesn't do what he wants. So there's a lot that goes on at the end of this book, because it ends in a huge cliffhanger. I think it's a 3-book one, so just be prepared. It ends in a big cliffhanger, lots of plot twists and turns happening at the end, big reveals. And so I am definitely intrigued. Drew is not the best, but I don't hate him. And, you know, I'm interested to see where this goes. So I'm definitely hoping I get the arc for the second one, and I enjoyed it. I mean, it didn't blow me away, but it was enjoyable. So I ended up giving that one 4 stars and 4 chilies because it does have a lot of spice, a lot of sex. Drew likes to take her in public places sometimes. You know, he's pretty alpha, a lot of dubious consent, but she likes it, you know, she enjoys it. Okay, so those are all the books that I had for the first half of February. Thank you so much for sticking with me on this. I know I'm not sounding great. I don't feel good, and it's just been a shit of a week. So thank you so much for bearing with me. It's probably still a long video because I still talked a lot like I always do. And that's why I didn't want to do only a monthly wrap up, because that would be forever. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this. If you could please comment, like, and as always, subscribe. I appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you on the next one.